Okay, so if you're someone walking through life right now, just feeling perpetually overwhelmed, maybe constantly playing catch up, or just, carrying that heavy sort of simmering burden of chronic stress, well, you are absolutely not alone.
Mm-hmm. It's almost the default state these days, isn't it?
It really feels like it. We live in this world that just constantly bombards us.
Yeah.
Information, demand. It makes us feel like we have to be the conductor of this orchestra where every single instrument is wildly out of tune.
Yeah, trying to control everything.
Exactly. We feel this desperate need to control everything around us. The difficult client, the overwhelming political headlines, that passive-aggressive email from a coworker.
Or even just the traffic jam on the way home, things you fundamentally can't influence.
Right. But what if? What if the key to managing this flood, what if the key to finding some actual peace and strategic clarity wasn't about successfully controlling the world out there, but about mastering your own internal reaction to it?
Okay, now that's interesting.
That is the core idea we're really going to tackle in this deep dive. We're focusing on a concept, it's known as the let them theory.
Less them. Okay.
Yeah, that we're going to try and extract the precise psychological framework behind it. And more importantly, the concrete tactical strategies it offers, things you can actually use.
Used to do what, exactly?
To shut down that automatic draining stress response that just kicks in, to shift the power dynamic back to yourself and protect your two most valuable resources, your time and your energy.
Okay, so that's the mission then. Time and energy protection by shifting focus inward. And our source material for today, it really focuses on articulating that distinction, like you said. The difference between trying to control the uncontrollable, that's the let them part.
Right. Stop fighting that battle.
Exactly. And then taking full strategic responsibility for your own next step, your own response. That's the let me component.
Let them and let me.
Got it.
Wrote it.
Oh. Yeah. And the central assertion here, and this is really crucial for you listener to grasp right away, the world is inherently full of friction. It just is.
Annoyances are everywhere.
Annoyances, people who will inevitably stress you out, they're constants. But the chronic, debilitating stress, the kind that really grinds you down, that isn't caused by the irritant itself.
No.
No. It's caused by the energy you spend fighting it, allowing it to control your internal emotional state.
Okay, so it's the reaction, not the thing itself.
Precisely. We're hunting for the mechanism, the mental switch that stops that emotional hijack from just consuming all your resources.
Okay, let's unpack this mechanism. And I think we have to start where, frankly, the vast majority of people feel the pinch the hardest.
Where's that?
The workplace. It's
Yeah.
where people spend most of their waking lives,
Yep.
right? And it's often where they feel the most constrained, the most powerless.
Yeah.
#I. The epidemic of workplace stress and powerlessness.
Yeah, the workplace. That makes sense.
And the research here, it's actually startling. Work isn't just, a significant cause of stress. The data shows it is the #1 cause of life stress for most adults today.
Number one. That's a heavy title for work to hold.
It is, absolutely.
And that brings us to one of the honestly most sobering statistics that the sources cite. A person's direct manager, their boss, has as much impact on their individual mental health as their spouse does.
Wow. As much as their spouse.
Yeah. Think about the magnitude of that comparison for a second. We talk all the time about the stresses of marriage, right? Financial pressure, shared goals, emotional intimacy, all that.
Sure, usual life stuff.
And yet the person who directs your tasks at work, who likely doesn't know you much beyond your quarterly performance review, that person generates the same level of mental and emotional friction as the person you share your entire life with.
That really puts the intensity of the workplace pressure cooker into perspective. It's not just tasks and deadlines.
Not at all. It's deeply personal, emotionally.
And what keeps people stuck, often, it isn't always the big dramatic crisis, is it? The sources list this whole catalog of specific, sometimes small, but painfully relatable stressors that just keep that pressure constantly simmering.
Like what?
Like those 4 p.m. meetings scheduled on a Friday afternoon, you know the ones. They just ruin your weekend before it even starts.
Ugh, yes. Or the constant stream of rude or demanding customers, if you're in that kind of role.
Absolutely. Or those passive-aggressive emails.
Yeah.
Where you spend like 20 minutes dissecting every semicolon trying to figure out if you've just been insulted.
Oh, I know those well. The ambiguity is maddening.
Right. Or the micromanaging boss who just kills any creativity you might have. The crushing weight of doing work you actively dislike day in, day out.
Or maybe even more damaging, that feeling of being completely unappreciated. Or seeing absolutely no path forward, no chance for advancement. That's a real killer for motivation.
Yeah, that feeling of being invisible or stuck.
And we also have to acknowledge the bigger sort of high-stakes macro stressors that fuel this chronic feeling. Things like false promises of advancement made during annual reviews that never materialize.
Oh, that's brutal.
Yeah. Or the sudden surprise layoff announcements that just send a chill through the whole office and make everyone look over their shoulder.
Creates this atmosphere of fear.
Exactly. And that universally draining feeling of being chronically understaffed. When you're constantly asked to do the work of 2, maybe even 3 people. That isn't just acute stress anymore. That's like a structural condition designed to just maximize your output until you inevitably burn out.
It feels unsustainable.
It is unsustainable.
So, okay, to make this abstract stress more concrete, let's dig into that classic case study the sources mentioned. The unpromoted employee.
Ah, yes, the high performer who gets stuck.
Exactly. This is someone who genuinely excels. They hit every target. They go above and beyond the call of duty. They're a loyal soldier, doing everything right on paper.
Mm-hmm. They're the model employee.
Totally. Yet, when they finally make the ask for the promotion, or maybe the raise that actually matches their output, they get denied.
Right. And the denial itself is painful enough, obviously, but it's often the corporate script that follows. That's what turns the denial into chronic, soul-crushing stress.
What kind of script are we talking about?
Well, they receive that frustrating, ambiguous corporate lip service, oh, we'd love to promote you, but company profits are down this year, or my hands are tied by the corporate structure.
The classic deflection.
Exactly. And it's immediately followed by that, frankly, worthless flattery like, but we really want you to know you add so much value to this team.
Ugh, that feels manipulative.
It is manipulative. That statement isn't really a compliment. The source argues it's actually a strategically deployed resource control mechanism. It's designed to extract more output from you, the employee, while stringing you along just enough so you don't actually quit.
Keeping you hoping, but delivering nothing.
Percent.
And the emotional fallout from that experience, it's devastating. The individual goes from feeling hopeful, maybe optimistic, to frustrated, then discouraged, and finally they often settle into this deep feeling of powerlessness.
Yeah, powerlessness, which then often manifests as hostility, maybe cynicism, or just complete demoralization. They feel trapped in this loop they can't break out of.
Just stuff.
And this is the critical moment where we need to bring in the psychological toll, because this kind of chronic, unresolved workplace stress, this is what Dr. Aditi, who's cited in our material, observes, is leading to record numbers of people experiencing burnout, just completely fried.
To the epidemics.
It really is. And the sources are quite harsh here, actually. They note that if you stay stuck in that loop, that cycle of anger and frustration at the situation, the stress will effectively, quote, make you stupid.
Okay, make you stupid. That is a provocative phrase. It sounds a bit judgmental. What exactly does the material mean by that? I assume it's not about intelligence, but maybe cognitive function.
It's entirely about cognitive function. Yeah, it's not an insult at all. It's describing a biological mechanism. When you're in that state of high frustration, that unresolved anger at, let's call him Boss Steve.
Okay, Boss Steve.
Your limbic system, especially your amygdala, the brain's threat detector, is constantly active. It's signaling threat, threat, threat.
Right, fight or flight mode, basically.
Exactly. And that state diverts massive cognitive resources away from your prefrontal cortex, the PFC. And the PFC is responsible for all your higher-level executive functions. Future planning, strategic thinking, nuanced decision-making, impulse control, all the smart stuff.
So the stress is hijacking the thinking part of the brain.
That's a perfect way to put it. By allowing that stress to run unchecked, you are essentially diverting energy from the strategic control center of your brain toward immediate threat assessment. You literally lose the ability to think clearly and logically about, say, a multi-step job search or long-term career planning.
Because you're stuck in reaction mode.
You feel frozen. And that feeling of being frozen is the stress making you strategically ineffective. It narrows your focus down to the immediate irritation, Boss Steve, rather than allowing you to see the path out.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
It's about resource allocation in the brain.
Exactly. It's biology, not judgment.
Okay, so this sets the stage perfectly for the let them application in a career context. We have to start by addressing the harsh truth, right? If you're dealing with Boss Steve, no amount of extra effort, convincing, or perfectly crafted arguments on your part can guarantee you get that promotion, or the raise, or even that slightly better cubicle near the window.
Nope. The decision, ultimately, no matter how much value you genuinely add, is entirely up to them. Their priorities, their budget, their politics, whatever it is.
And this is the crucial moment of acceptance. This is what defines the let them directive in this situation.
Right. Once you've clearly communicated your value, you've done the work, you've made the case, any subsequent effort to convince or cajole or emotionally pressure them is essentially wasted energy. It's throwing good energy after bad.
So the directive is?
The directive is, let them string you along if that's what they're choosing to do. Stop dedicating your precious time and, more importantly, your emotional energy trying to influence a decision that is fundamentally outside your sphere of control.
Because that energy investment is currently just giving Boss Steve power over your internal peace, your mood, your focus.
Exactly. You're letting them live rent-free in your head and dictate your emotional state.
Okay. This brings us then to the crucial pivot point. The question that starts to transfer the power back to the individual, which is,
who is truly responsible for the arc and the success of your career?
Right. It can't be Boss Steve.
It absolutely cannot be Boss Steve. The answer must be, unequivocally, you. If you accept even implicitly that Boss Steve controls your future, then you are powerless. The entire goal of this let them theory is to seize back that agency, to realize you hold the reins.
Okay, so that's the let them part, accepting the limits of your control over others. Now we shift into the let me response.
Yeah.
Reclaiming control.
Yes, the action part.
So instead of sitting there internally boiling over Boss Steve's perceived injustice or replaying those frustrating conversations, the required action is to pivot that energy strategically.
Oh, so?
Stop fixating on the current, maybe miserable job situation, and focus, like a laser, on finding a better opportunity. The internal command changes from how do I fix this situation to, okay, let me go get a better situation.
I see. It's a shift in focus from inward complaining to outward action. And the contrast in potential outcomes here, it couldn't be starker, could it? If you stay put, stewing. Boss Steve effectively controls your future. Your salary, your title, your opportunities, they all remain constrained by his decisions or the company's whims.
You're waiting for them to change.
Right, which might never happen, however. If you consciously redirect the energy you were previously spending on anger and frustration.
Energy that was making you stupid strategically.
Precisely. If you channel that energy into updating your resume, maybe polishing your LinkedIn profile, starting to network strategically, interviewing for jobs where your skills are actually valued and needed, then you become the agent of change in your own life.
You are in control of the timeline and the potential outcome, not Boss Steve.
You got it. You're driving the bus now.
Now, I appreciate that the source material doesn't shy away from challenging the listener on the mental hurdles involved here. Because we all have excuses for staying put, don't we?
Oh, absolutely. The inertia is powerful.
Do we dread updating the resume? Yes, usually. Is getting out there and networking potentially intimidating? For many people, yes. Can finding a new job sometimes take forever and feel discouraging? Absolutely, yes.
But these are real feelings, real obstacles.
They are. But this is where the material uses that blunt, almost clinical observation again. It calls these comfort-seeking behaviors the reasons we don't update the resume or network dumb excuses.
Okay, dumb excuses again. Explain that.
Again, it's not about intelligence. It's dumb in the sense of being strategically counterproductive. They're excuses that prioritize short-term emotional comfort, like avoiding the intimidating work of a job search over long-term strategic power and well-being, like finding financial and emotional independence in a better role.
So it's the stressed brain opting for immediate comfort over future gain.
Exactly. They are barriers created by a brain that's exhausted and focused on avoiding immediate discomfort, not a brain that's calmly planning a better future. The stress itself fuels the inaction.
That's a powerful cycle to break.
It really is. And it leads to this powerful realization. You actually have the power to leave a job or a relationship or even just a stressful conversation pretty much any time you want to. You are never actually stuck.
That feeling of being stuck?
Yeah, that feeling is often a lie. A story rooted in fear and the chronic stress itself. A story you tell yourself, perhaps unconsciously, to avoid the hard, sometimes scary work of making a change.
Wow. Okay, so the feeling of stuckness is a symptom, not the reality.
Often, yes, according to this framework.
And that really lays out the strategic calculus the theory offers, doesn't it? You have a finite amount of time and energy each day, each week, 6 months are going to pass regardless of what you do.
Time marches on.
Right. You can spend the 6 months venting at the bar about how awful Boss Steve is, replaying every grievance.
Draining your energy, achieving nothing.
Exactly. Or you can spend that same amount of time and energy networking, polishing your skills, interviewing, and actively planning your exit strategy.
So in 6 months.
In 6 months, you could actually be in a better situation, just new job, better pay, more respect. Or you could still be sitting there at the same bar complaining about the same old problems. That choice, the choice of where to strategically allocate your limited resources, that is the essence of reclaiming your power.
Okay, so we've established the foundation. Let them is about stopping the effort to control others, accepting that limit.
Release.
And let me is the conscious, strategic decision about how you choose to respond. But this let me part that feels like the moment of real choice, the pivot point where transformation actually happens. It can't just be a passive reaction, right? It has to be deliberate.
Oh, absolutely deliberate. That strategic choice point is everything. The difficulty, though, is that every situation is unique. There's no one-size-fits-all let me.
Right. Context matters.
Immensely. The key to actually protecting your time and energy is learning how to choose the response that genuinely aligns with your core values and your available energy level.
Yeah.
Crucially, in that specific moment.
So it's dynamic.
Very dynamic. A truly strategic let me response one day might be direct confrontation if you have the energy and the stakes are high enough. But the very next day, for a similar issue, the best strategic response might be simply walking away and preserving your peace.
Okay. This feels like it needs an example.
It does. And this brings us to a perfect, highly relatable, if maybe slightly gross, anecdote the sources use to illustrate exactly that transition from the automatic stress response kicking into the conscious strategic action of let me.
Okay, I'm ready. Slightly gross.
Well, it involves dog poop. So let's call it the dog poop story.
All right, the dog poop story it is. Lay it on us.
Okay, the setup is crucial here. An individual is out walking in a local state park, a place they go often, enjoy, value.
Their sanctuary, maybe.
Could be. And they get warned by a park ranger about ongoing problems with some dog owners. Specifically, people not leashing their pets or, importantly, not picking up after them.
Okay, classic park issues.
Right. But the ranger adds that this behavior is threatening the potential closure of the trails to all dogs. So the warning immediately establishes high stakes and a potential future loss for the protagonist, who presumably enjoys walking their own dog there.
Got it. Stakes establish, personal impact potential.
Exactly. So the stage is set for a trigger moment. And sure enough, the person then sees someone about 100 feet ahead on the trail with an unleashed dog.
Ah, there it is.
And that initial rush of stress, the amygdala switching on, is instantaneous. They immediately feel annoyed, maybe a bit angry, because this one idiot in their mind is now actively threatening their future enjoyment of the park.
That automatic threat response we talked about.
Precisely. It's a perfect example. The amygdala, the brain's smoke detector, flags the sight of the unleashed dog and the irresponsible owner as a threat to the community rules, a threat to the individual's future access. It doesn't ask permission, it just floods the system with stress hormones.
Adrenaline, cortisol.
All of it. And for a moment, the person actually tries to apply the framework. They consciously think, okay, let them, trying to ignore it, keep their peace, just walk on by.
Trying to override the initial reaction.
Yes, but that strategy fails completely when the inevitable happens. The unleashed dog relieves itself directly in the middle of the trail.
Oh, no.
And the owner, instead of using a baggie like they're supposed to, simply kicks a thin layer of leaves and dirt over the mess and just walks on, whistling perhaps.
The kicking cover. The worst.
The absolute worst. And that inadequate action, the kicking of the leaves that pushes the emotional hijacking past the point of no return for this person, the strategic let them thought is completely overridden.
Anger takes over.
Totally.
Okay.
The individual goes from just annoyed to feeling personally affronted. And as the source describes it, they basically anoint themselves as the dog police in a matter of seconds.
Okay, I can picture that feeling. The righteous indignation.
Exactly. And this confirms a core truth of the theory. You often cannot control that initial emotional reaction, that surge of anger or frustration, but you must learn to recognize it, pause, and reset it, so you can then choose your strategic next move, rather than just reacting from that hijacked state.
Okay, so the anger flares, maybe they take a deep breath, and then the power returns in that moment of choice.
Yeah.
What do I do now?
Precisely. And the anecdote is so useful because it then lays out a clear spectrum of let me options that were available in that single moment. It shows that even when you're initially triggered, You always retain strategic agency.
You get to choose your response. So what were the options in the dog poop scenario? Let's analyze them based on those criteria the sources suggest: energy, time, and values.
Okay, option 1, the shrug and ignore.
The path of least resistance.
Pretty much. This is the lowest energy choice. You consciously say, let them. You recognize this specific incident right now is not worth your limited time or energy today, and you just continue your walk. You prioritize your current emotional peace.
And that's a valid choice.
Absolutely. Especially if your resources are already depleted from other things that day. Sometimes strategic retreat is the smartest move.
Okay, option 2.
Option 2, actively help lead.
Wait, help. Help the person who left the mess.
No, help the situation. This is framed as the high-value sort of leader-like response. You say, let me be the bigger person here. You physically take out your own baggie and pick up the mess yourself.
Huh. Okay, why would you do that?
The reasoning is you're choosing to leave the public space better than you found it. You're acting on a principle, maybe the principle that if you see a problem you can easily solve, and solving it aligns with your core values, like protecting the park access for everyone. You take quiet responsibility. You lead by example.
But hang on, that seems to fundamentally contradict the whole protect your energy directive we started with. Isn't the goal of let them to stop doing things, like cleaning up messes that aren't actually your responsibility? How do you know when you should pick up someone else's metaphorical dog poop versus when you should ignore it?
That is the essential strategic question, right?
Yeah.
And the difference, according to the source, lies in values, alignment, and chosen expenditure.
Okay, unpack that.
Picking up the mess isn't about being a doormat or enabling bad behavior. It's framed as choosing to dedicate, 5 seconds of your physical energy toward protecting something you deeply value, in this case, the continued existence of the dog-friendly trails.
So it's an investment.
Exactly. It's a proactive, strategic investment in the community's future based on your values. You choose to solve the problem directly because the outcome, keeping the trails open, is more valuable to you than the minor inconvenience of the action, spending 5 seconds picking up poop. It is a chosen, deliberate expenditure of energy, not a reactive drain caused by someone else's actions.
Okay, that distinction is really key.
Mm-hmm.
Chosen, value-driven expenditure versus a reactive, imposed drain. Got it. What are the other options? Presumably higher energy.
Yes. Option 3, confrontation.
The dog police option.
Right. This is the highest immediate energy response. You actually chase the person down, maybe hand them a baggie pointedly, and explain the park rules and the implications of their actions.
Satisfying in the moment, perhaps.
Maybe. But the source notes that while this is a valid theoretical option, it often isn't strategically wise.
Yeah.
Confrontation frequently escalates, right? It can consume far more time and emotional energy than you initially intend, and sometimes without any positive resolution anyway. You might just get into a shouting match.
Right. It's high risk, high energy.
Very high energy. You probably need to reserve this option for issues that are both urgent and critically important to your core values, or perhaps when you happen to have a surplus of energy you're willing to burn.
Okay, and the last one, option 4.
Option 4, report strategic delay.
This sounds more measured.
It is. This involves taking measured action. Instead of confronting the person directly, you turn around, you deliberately track down that park officer who gave you the initial warning, you identify the owner who left a mess, and you personally report the incident.
So the park authority can handle the direct intervention.
Exactly. This uses your time, certainly, but it uses your energy strategically toward achieving a potentially longer-term systemic change, like better enforcement of the rules. It's less about immediate emotional release and more about contributing to a solution.
Okay, 4 distinct options.
Yeah.
Ignore, help lead, confront, report.
And the profound realization that comes from analyzing these options is this. You cannot stop that initial wave of irritation or anger when triggered. But you always get to choose who you are going to be in response to it. You choose how you show up.
You are the sole curator of how you spend your time and energy in that moment after the initial hit.
That is the feeling of agency, of control that the theory aims to restore. It puts you back in the driver's seat even when someone else created the initial problem.
Because the right response isn't fixed. It depends entirely on your current state, doesn't it?
Yeah.
How much emotional bandwidth you have, how important this specific issue really is to your core values, how much time you realistically have available right then.
Exactly. Which means the Let Me framework requires constant self-assessment, constant calibration. It's not a rigid rule book.
Okay. So how do you make that calibration easier in the heat of the moment when you're feeling triggered?
Well, to assist with that calibration, the sources introduce a really practical filter for those high-stress moments, a quick mental checklist, basically. They call it the bother test.
The bother test. I like the sound of that. Simple, direct. How does it work?
It's designed to help you quickly gauge the severity of the values conflict, to figure out if this irritation is just fleeting or something deeper. You
Hmm.
simply stop, take that breath, and ask yourself 3 questions. Is this going to bother me in an hour? Is this going to bother me in a week? Or is this just a momentary flash of annoyance that will pass?
Okay. Hour, week, fleeting.
Right. And the resulting rule of thumb is actually quite clear and practical. If you suspect you'll still be mentally rehearsing the argument or replaying the incident in your head an hour from now, that means the irritation has successfully breached your mental boundary. It's sticking. And you should probably do something strategic about it. Report, maybe confront if you have energy, maybe even help lead.
Okay, the 1 hour mark signals action needed.
Generally, yes. But if it's an issue that you know will legitimately still matter to you, still irk you, still impact you in a week or maybe even a year, then you absolutely must dedicate strategic energy to taking action. Inaction, in that case, is just allowing chronic stress to build.
So the time frame indicates the level of strategic importance.
Precisely. Applied back to our dog mess anecdote, the individual realized, using this test, that if they just walked away and did nothing, option 1, the sight of that mess, and more importantly, the knowledge that the trail access was threatened, would bother them. It would bother them every single time they walked their dogs at that park.
It became a sustained threat to their values and their routine.
Exactly. Therefore, complete inaction wasn't really a viable, long-term option for their peace of mind. A strategic response, whether reporting, helping, or maybe even confronting if they felt up to it, was necessitated by the bother test. The issue was going to stick around mentally.
Okay, let's scale this up dramatically now.
Mm-hmm.
We've gone from workplace stress with boss Steve to park stress with the dog owner.
Mm-hmm.
Let's move now from those individual frustrations to the massive, often overarching stressor of global and national affairs, politics.
Yes. The big one for many people right
There
now.
are so many. This is where people often report feeling the most acute, the most draining sense of powerlessness and just overwhelm.
And that sense of overwhelm, it's completely validated by the data. The sources highlight that a large majority of people across the spectrum report feeling highly stressed about the current state of world politics. And it's pervasive, isn't it? It bleeds into everything.
Absolutely. Personal conversations, social media feeds, even family gatherings can become minefields. We're living in a moment, it feels like, that's defined by deep polarization. The stakes feel incredibly high on almost every issue. And it seems like everyone is just locked into these positions of anger or maybe fear.
Yeah, it's hard to even have civil conversations sometimes. The emotional energy spent just consuming the daily political cycle, let alone engaging with it, can be absolutely massive.
It really can. And it creates this deep urge in a lot of people to just disengage entirely, to just throw their hands up in the air and say, I can't deal with this anymore.
And that disengagement, that feeling of powerlessness you mentioned, that is often the direct result of applying your limited energy toward things you fundamentally cannot change, especially things in the past.
Okay. So when we apply the let them framework to political stress, where do we start? We start by identifying what is unequivocally out of your control.
Right, which is almost always the past. You have to identify the concrete reality of what's already happened.
For example, that local school board. They've already decided on that controversial policy. It's done. The vote happened.
Or the Senate has already cast its vote on that bill you cared about. It's either passed or failed. The outcome is set for now.
Or that last election result.
It's
finalized.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's tied up in the courts, and you, personally, cannot magically resolve that complex legal process overnight by sheer force of will or anger.
Exactly. Trying to rage against those finalized past events is pure retroactive anger. It's like shouting at yesterday's newspaper.
Uses vast quantities of your emotional resources.
With absolutely zero potential for return on investment, it just drains you. So the core directive of let them in the political sphere is crystal clear. Stop investing your anger, your frustration, your precious mental energy into what has already happened. You cannot change yesterday's decision. Let them.
Okay, let the past be the past. But, and this feels like the crucial realization of the whole framework, applying let them to the past is precisely what frees up the energy to execute let me effectively for the future.
Yes, that's the pivot.
You are never saying, with this theory, that you can't make a difference going forward. You're just saying you can't change what just happened, and focusing all your energy there only stresses you out and, like we said before, makes you strategically ineffective.
Precisely. That backward-looking anger freezes you.
Mm.
So we shift the focus entirely to strategic future action. The imperative becomes, okay, let me stay engaged and vocal on the issues I genuinely care about, and let me dedicate actual actionable time toward changing the future trajectory.
So it takes that generalized, exhausting feeling of anger or despair and channels it into focused, specific power.
Exactly. Directed energy, not just diffuse heat.
And the sources really emphasize the critical difference here between productive action and mere complaint. If an issue truly matters to you, if it passes that bother test, it's going to affect you or things you care about in a week, a year, maybe longer, if it sticks around. Then you must stop just complaining about it. Complaining in isolation is described again as strategically dumb or useless if it's not paired with some kind of action. Why? Because it's merely a resource drain, it stresses you out, maybe stresses out the people listening to you, and provides zero strategic return. Talk is cheap.
So the let me here has to involve doing something.
Yes, and the strategic action here, just like with the dog poop story, exists on a spectrum. It doesn't have to be monumental.
Right. If you're feeling totally overwhelmed by national politics, maybe your let me action is actually low energy but potentially high impact for you. Like changing your news consumption habits, maybe focusing only on verifiable local information that you can influence instead of doom-scrolling global crises 24/7.
Okay, managing information intake as a strategic act.
Absolutely. Or maybe it's dedicating just 1 hour a week to calling your local representative's office about one specific issue you care about. Focused, targeted, manageable.
Versus the high-energy, low-impact traps.
Exactly. And the sources are very direct about this. Things like getting into endless arguments in social media comment sections, usually shouting into the void, often with anonymous strangers. That is identified as a significant energy drain that yields almost no tangible political change. That is a failure of strategic let me. You're spending energy with no real return.
So choose your battles wisely. Choose your actions wisely.
That's the core of it. The power of this theory in the political sphere or any large-scale stressor is that it forces you to stop waiting for someone else to fix it or just complaining that it's broken. If the system or the policy or the outcome bothers you enough, if it passes the bother test, then you must dedicate time and energy strategically to changing it.
You have to, in some small way, be the change you want to see, as the saying goes. Be the one everyone else might be waiting for. Initiate the action.
Exactly. You have to initiate. And this emphasis on the power of individual or small group focused action is reinforced by that famous quote from the anthropologist Professor Margaret Mead, which is so often shared, but maybe not fully absorbed. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has.
That quote feels like a direct attack on that feeling of powerlessness we discussed.
It is. It's a call to agency. It says, no matter how big the problem feels, whether it's dealing with Boss Steve or tackling a national policy issue, there is always something constructive you can do through focused action and a deliberate, strategic attitude. You might not change the whole world overnight, but you can change your part of it or contribute to a larger movement.
And that conscious choice, that strategic action, no matter how small, that is the true meaning of let me. Taking responsibility for your contribution to the future.
Okay, so let's try and consolidate this. Let's nail down the core mechanism that transfers the power back to you when you're facing stress.
The fundamental principle.
Yeah. The ultimate power, the thing you always retain, resides in the single truth. You cannot control the world outside of you, other people, events, outcomes, but you can always, 100% of the time, control what you say, what you think, or what you do in response to it. That control is absolute and internal.
That's where your agency lies.
Always. And the central warning that echoes through the sources is clear. You have to become aware of and recognize the subtle ways in which chronic stress enables self-sabotage, how it tricks you into giving your power away without even realizing it.
How so?
That feeling of being perpetually drained, exhausted, maybe constantly angry or agitated, that isn't just bad luck or a sign that the world is uniquely terrible to you. According to this theory, it's often a sign that you are allowing external forces, whether it's a coworker's noisy typing or a frustrating political headline, to dictate and consume your internal state and your precious internal resources. You're letting them hijack you.
Letting them drain your battery.
Perfectly put. And so the theory elevates the paramount importance of consciously managing your time and your energy. These are finite, non-renewable resources each day. The theory serves as an immediate filter, empowering you to make better, faster choices about which external elements are actually worth your precious attention and which absolutely are not.
So every moment you dedicate your mental cycle to something external and fundamentally unchangeable, like fuming about something Boss Steve did last week or getting sucked into an angry online debate with a stranger,
Yeah.
that is a limited resource. Your time, your focus, your emotional energy that you are consciously choosing not to invest in your own advancement, your own well-being, or your own strategic goals. It's an opportunity cost.
A massive opportunity cost.
Okay.
Every minute spent on unproductive stress is a minute not spent on something that actually moves your life forward.
Now, it feels really crucial here for you listening to understand what this theory is not.
Mm-hmm.
Because misunderstanding it could easily lead to passive inaction or just letting things slide that shouldn't.
Good point. Let's clarify the boundaries.
Okay. This let them framework does not mean you should start avoiding difficult conversations that genuinely need to happen. It's not an instruction to become a passive doormat and just let people walk all over you.
Definitely not.
It doesn't mean you are suddenly required to pick up every single piece of metaphorical or literal dog poop you encounter in the world. And it certainly doesn't mean you have to run for political office if politics stresses you out.
Right. It's not about becoming blindly passive or taking on the world's problems single-handedly. So what does it mean then?
What it does mean is the conscious establishment of boundaries and the exercise of deliberate choice. You choose what impacts you and, crucially, to what extent.
Mm-hmm. You regulate the input.
Exactly. You choose which arguments or fights you participate in and which ones you strategically decide to walk away from to preserve your energy for battles that matter more. You get to decide when a job or a relationship or a particular issue is genuinely worth fighting for, worth investing that precious energy, versus when it is strategically time to exit, let go, and leave it behind.
So you are always in control of what happens next for you because you control your response, your decision, your action.
That's the locus of control. It's internal.
Okay, let's provide that final crystal clear summary then. Boiling down the theory solution, focusing on that inevitable cycle of stress and the necessary pivot it teaches.
Lay it out for us.
Okay, the process starts with the problem. Other people, external factors, life itself, will inevitably stress you out. That's a given. When you allow their behavior or those events to control your emotions reactively, you surrender your personal power. You let them dictate your internal state, leaving you completely drained, with no time or energy left for your own strategic goals and well-being.
Okay, that's the default trap.
That's the trap. Then comes the truth. Your body's initial stress response, that jolt of anger, the frustration, the agitation that often stems from the amygdala, is largely automatic. You usually cannot control that initial hit of emotion. It will happen.
Can't stop the trigger.
Can't stop the initial trigger. But you can learn how to recognize that automatic response almost immediately, pause, and consciously reset it before it permanently hijacks your ability to think clearly and strategically.
Okay. Recognize and reset. And
Finally, the solution. Use the power of let them to make the decisive, strategic decision not to allow the external behavior or event to bother you long-term or define your subsequent actions. Stop giving it energy. Then use the mental clarity provided by setting that boundary to initiate let me, consciously choosing your next strategic action based on your values and your available energy. And by doing that, you reclaim all that wasted time and energy for what truly matters most to you.
let them, then let me. Release control externally, take control internally.
That's the essence of it.
Okay, that brings us to our final takeaway for you listening today. Just remember those two simple steps when you're faced with any frustration, big or small. First, ask, can I control this? If not, let them. Release that struggle for external control. Second, ask, how do I want to respond strategically? Let me. Choose your response based on your highest values and your current energy level.
And we want to leave you with maybe a provocative thought to carry with you this week, something to mull over.
Okay.
Take a moment, maybe later today, to reflect on one recurring, perhaps minor irritation in your daily life. It could be anything: a coworker who clicks their pen constantly, the way someone loads the dishwasher, the morning traffic noise, maybe a specific commentator on cable news that always gets under your skin.
Yeah, one in mind, okay.
Now ask yourself this. If you consciously decided to stop allowing that single minor irritation to control your emotional state, to steal your focus for just 1 week, what major personal goal, that strategic goal you've maybe been putting off because you feel too drained or scattered, could you finally dedicate that newly reclaimed time and energy toward?
What could you achieve with that recovered energy?
Exactly. Just remember, fundamentally, you are never truly stuck. That feeling is powerful, but according to this framework, it's often just the story you choose to tell yourself when you let outside forces dictate your internal power. You always have the next move.